Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to episode number 45 of Merritt in the Morning. I'm Brad Kloffenstein, president of the Greater Lawrence Chamber. He is Jim Merritt, 30-year state senator. Our guest today, Lara Beck.
Hi.
Hi.
Laura.
How are you?
Laura.
Yes, hi. How are you
Hi.
today?
We're supposed to look serenely at Klopp when he's talking.
Oh,
Yes,
we do?
exactly.
Okay.
Like he's like a
I've
deity.
got the announcer voice.
Yes,
going. It's,
it's 2025.
Laura, you'll learn. We do the commercials first because
Okay.
that way they actually get value for the money they pay us. So we are coming to you. We are back again at our home base of Cafe Audrey's at beautiful Fort Harrison. Breakfast and lunch 7 days a week. So get in here, have breakfast and lunch.
Coffee's
And-
delicious. The coffee's delicious.
The coffee
Yep.
is delicious.
Coffee's amazing.
And it's like a scavenger hunt. Try to figure out where we broadcast Merritt in the Morning from. So you can take the Merritt in the
Consistency
Morning.
is not our friend.
That's why
No.
they have me on, because I'm going to come up with new ideas.
Yes.
That's my job.
Well, I mean, you too can come to Cafe Audrey's and sit at this exact table
That's true.
and
Yes,
have
you
breakfast. I mean, it's a seat of honor. So thank you for Cafe Audrey's for hosting us. Also want to thank our sponsor, Stockyards Bank and Trust. Locations at 71st and Binford, Carmel, downtown Indianapolis, Plainfield. They've got one down in Greenwood at County Line in Emerson. Coming any day now to Center Grove / Stones Crossing.
I didn't know that. That's a booming area.
It is a booming
That's where my
area.
eye doctor
Yeah.
is.
It's
yeah,
almost down
booming.
to Burgersville.
It is,
I
yeah.
drove by it.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll be cutting the ribbon on that one.
Think they'll invite us?
They better invite us.
They should.
Come
I can
on,
swing
who's a
by
better
the eye doctor
spokesperson?
on my way back.
They don't have better spokespeople than us.
Well, I would agree.
90% of the time, our comments are positive. So, and then I think they've also inked a deal to do one out around
Zionsville.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to say they've even got a second one up in Whitestown.
Wow.
So I think they
yeah.
might be doubling down.
Talk
in
about
that area.
growth.
Yeah,
I know.
definitely.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Go Stockyards Bank. And my stock of Stockyards Bank and Trust have been doing fairly well lately. So you guys keep up the good work.
I love the libertarian who's telling us how great his investments are going.
Well, don't get me wrong. I own like 3 shares. So
But
I'm not exactly on.
I have
on
a
the
bank
CEO
account
track.
there. I have a bank
Do you?
account. Thank you, Paula.
Yes.
Great service.
So, yes, thank you, Stockyards Bank and Trust. They were early adopters of sponsoring Merritt in the Morning. Also want to thank the Honey Baked Ham Company, locations at 96th in Michigan, also Greyhound Pass in Carmel. Jim, ham is not just for the holidays.
No.
It is a year-round.
But we did have 2 hams. My mother-in-law sent a ham for Christmas, and I bought one as well. And we did a little mini podcast there. And, there's such great – the Kalb family is just a wonderful, wonderful owner for that. And I got to meet a Kalb.
That's good.
Oh, that's cool.
How many
daughter.
How many quarts of honey mustard did you slather on your ham?
So did they sell honey mustard there? Because I didn't know they had their own honey mustard.
Yes.
They
Oh,
do.
yeah. Jim
Okay.
Jim
Oh,
you
They
you
have
do?
do?
sides.
Oh, okay.
They have chocolate cake.
Oh, my gosh.
They have barbecue. I mean, they have
Because they're
also-
honey baked. They're unparalleled.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think there's nothing that's like a honey baked ham.
They're
You
spectacular.
cut the end. I just cut the sugar part off at the end, and
Why?
What's the best part?
So good.
I mean, if I
No,
could
I
go in
just
and
eat
order
that
a sandwich
part.
of nothing but the sugar, the
I just eat that
crispy
part
ends.
with mustard.
My mom.
This is going to turn into a food show here very quickly.
My mom, growing up, would go out and we went to a grocery store called Goodwin Westfall, G&W, and it was like at 60. It was north of Kessler on Michigan Road, and just down the street from Kelly's Bakery, and my mom did a ham slice, and then she would bake it in a skillet with Coca-Cola and mustard and brown sugar.
Oh, that's delicious.
Jim's sister's here today, and
Yes,
she is
we have
giving a thumbs up as our
Yeah,
live
Live
guest.
studio audience.
We do.
We're getting a thumbs
She's
up on that
thumbing us.
recipe.
Yeah, and she
Did she put some red dye in it too? Put a Twinkie on top.
Yeah, she would throw some broccoli in there, and
Make it healthy.
and it was just
That's the
terrific
best.
to make
I
it
love it.
healthy. But it was a great meal, and I was raised on ham. And anyway, great sponsor. Thank you, Cow family. The honey baked ham, and everybody knows I like the honey mustard, but they have many, many different sides.
So, well, looks like we've run out of time. Laura, thank you for
Hey,
being here with
thanks.
us.
Yeah, I talked about what I like to eat. This is good. Thanks.
So,
I'm your quickest show ever.
yeah. No, so we're We're tripartisan today.
We are.
We
We
are.
are. Actually, none of us are very good at the parties we allegedly represent. but yet, here we are. So,
You ran for lieutenant governor for the Libertarians.
I did. You were a state senator for 30 years and ran for mayor.
And I chaired the party, and Lara, you have done so much in the PR space for the Democrat Party. I thought it would be. We thought that would be a great show to talk about politics, but also talk a little bit about you and Tim and your family, and just kind of introduce you to the 6 people that watch this.
Oh, it's
Thank
more
you.
than six.
Well,
It's
I
600
know.
at least.
I was gonna say, I have a teenager, so I
you have a date
really
or something, or you
no.
keep it-
I just got a text from Maggie Kernan, who is the
okay.
Indiana's former first lady. She's an avid texter. She just got a dog, so we chat about our dogs all the time. So yeah, thank you for having me on.
Wonderful
It's always
lady.
fun to be with you. Yeah,
So tell
she's
us
the
about
best.
yourself. How did you ascend to the top of crisis management?
I
and
am
PR
not
in
really
Indiana?
ascend. I wouldn't say I ascend. Well, so I don't. You probably knew John Shorg, who was
course.
okay. So John Shorg is a dear friend of mine, old friend of mine. Kind of consider him to be a mentor. I don't know if you knew him. He ran the House Media Democrat Media Caucus. So anyway, he used to always say the mark of a good PR person is one you don't see anywhere, and that's always been my motto, essentially.
problem.
Yeah, really. I mean, it is. So, yeah, I don't really think I'm at the top of anything. I just try to do really good work. I've just been really fortunate and really lucky. I worked for Bart Peterson when he was mayor. I worked at the city of Indianapolis. Actually, my first really true cut my teeth spokesperson job was at the city's Department of Metropolitan Development, which was a fantastic job. But it was a young person's game because I think I probably handled multiple media issues a day, and that's how I really learned not just how to work media-wise, but just understanding about being transparent, being open, making sure people have good information, making sure the facts are out there, putting forward initiatives and programs and people as opposed to that person behind the scenes. So I was lucky. I worked in Bart Peterson's administration, and I used to laugh all the time when I had that DMD job. I was really young. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And I used to always say, like, well, I figure they'll call me. If I do something wrong, they'll call me. And so I just, I didn't get a call, so I just kept doing what I was doing.
That is absolutely the path to success. Now, you're like the most famous Duluthian we've ever had on the show.
Yes, I'm originally from Duluth, Minnesota, so
Duluthian.
I know.
Sounds
Well,
like
and
a
you know it. It
religion.
is a Duluthian. It is, yes. So, Duluth is a great place. Yeah, it really
I'm
is.
always fascinated about crisis management.
Sure. Yeah.
And give us like 3 pillars of what crisis management actually, and give us an example of how you use those factors of calming a situation down, and I think our audience would be really interested in how you do something like that.
Well, I'd say every client and every crisis is different. So a crisis to you is very different probably than a crisis to Brad and a crisis to anyone else. So I think it's recognizing when you're in a crisis situation what that crisis is for that specific client and that specific person. Sometimes it's reputation management. Sometimes they're being accused of something. Maybe they did it, maybe they didn't do it. But there's always, in most situations, there are 2 narratives or more than one narrative. So it's really helping that client really get out, not even get out their message, but it's a lot of times what I do is I sit down and I do a TikTok and I'm like, okay, what happened? When did it happen? Who said what? How did this move forward? And then while you're working I'm just thinking back to one I handled a couple years ago, while you're putting together, you pull the whole team together. So everybody has different roles, different jobs. My first rule of thumb is whoever is sitting in the meeting crying is not the person that's going to go on TV. That's always,
Right.
that's generally that's my first rule of thumb. And I joke about that, but it is true.
So you're there to calm.
You're there to calm, but you're also there sometimes. I don't want to say it's tough love, but it's also sometimes like you're being a mom. Like, okay, all right, this got messed up. So how are we going to fix it? And sometimes you can't fix it. Sometimes you just have to get your message out there. You have to work with all the various stakeholders you're involved with and recognize that something worse, you just hope something worse happens later in the day. Like I had one client that we used to laugh about, this is years ago, and since, I don't know, for your audience might find this funny, but You probably remember the years when the Pacers were in the news all the time for, the Ron Artest, the Malice at the Palace.
Yeah, 20 years ago.
20 years ago, yeah. So I had a client that had stuff happen all the time. And every time something happened, a Pacer would get arrested or a Pacer would get in trouble. And our joke used to be, we should just send flowers. Greg Schenkel was the PR guy there at the time.
Thank you
So
for
Greg
stealing the
Schenkel was the
headlines.
PR. Yeah, we'd be like, oh, man, we got to send Greg Schenkel flowers. Thank you, Greg. Man, you took one on the team for us. Because, our story would just get knocked down on the algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a part of it. Sometimes I joke and say you just wait for something worse to happen. But there will be times, I think, in the social media environment and now this social media echo chamber that you have where something that may not be perceived locally as a crisis. So say here in Indianapolis, you've got an organization I worked with once where there was a crisis situation. It was kind of like a here locally, but it blew up on social media. And so you have to also look at how do you manage that social media piece of it. So, but just going back, one of the things I think is really important is you can't be in a vacuum. So you've got to immediately get on the phone and activate people who are in your trusted network. You got to call them. You got to explain what happened. And you have to have the leader do that. And you have to have surrogates do that. That's incredibly important because it's our world no longer is the mainstream traditional media. Our world is so much more than that. So you really have to be very creative and make sure you're hitting these stakeholder groups.
Yeah, right. Guide the narrative.
Yes, my thought has always been the more silence you put out, the more opportunity other people have to craft that narrative for you.
You're
Yes.
filling the vacuum.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Who's going to fill the vacuum?
If you don't move quick, someone else will start telling that story for you. And I actually, it sort of sounds weird, but I will follow when crisis situations do happen with other organizations. I will follow it, and then I will go back and see, oh, wow, they did this really well, or, oh, I see why they did this, or, oh, this
Best
makes
practices.
sense. It is. So, and then I go back after every situation I've ever been in, and I do a SWOT analysis of like, okay, what could I have done better? What did I miss? What can I add on for next time?
You're on a lot of talk shows, and I'm with you, and Klopp's with you on those shows.
I have no idea why or how, but oh well.
Yeah, well, the three
I just,
Stooges- we're
again,
Stooges here.
I just
We're marginally
figured.
not crazy.
I just,
when we get on, you kind of wonder, where are the pros?
yeah, like who?
Jobs.
Yeah, right. Or sometimes you like watch CNN and you're like, man, I wonder if those people are like us,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
they
I'm
are.
no Pete Seat. Let me just say that. I am
Well,
no Pete Seat.
our friend Pete Seat,
Yes.
or Mark Lauder, who's on mornings
Yeah.
now.
I love watching Mark Lauder. I
Yeah.
always message him on Twitter and I'm like, I'm watching you on Jake Tapper.
I screen shoot when he has all
know.
these pretty women on there. I go, I want to be you when I grow up.
Mark Lauder, he's so funny.
Mark lived that life.
I love Mark.
He's doing very well these
He is.
days. And
I don't agree with anything he says, but I still love Mark Lauder and like watching him.
he's
Yeah, he's good
He's
people.
top drawer. But when we're on these talk shows, but you're a Democrat, but you're not in a bad mood about it. And
Well, I don't know. This weekend's gonna be a long one. I don't know.
Well.
No, I'm actually doing
my-
Channel 8 on Monday because I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go.
Gonna suck
I'm
it
going to
up.
do it.
Yes.
No, I mean, but
Take
I'm
my
going to do
pill.
it. I'm
Yeah.
just going to be myself. That's
Be
the
a
thing.
Democrat. Be who you are.
Yeah.
And right now we have a supermajorities in the city county council for Democrats.
We do.
We have supermajorities and a Democrat governor down Mark Street at the State House.
A Republican governor, you mean?
Yes, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Republican supermajorities and
Okay.
Republican
It's a
governor.
Freudian slip from Jim this morning.
Yeah. But and so the slice of life, there's a lot to talk about out there,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I think they have all three of us on these shows, is because we all look at it in different approaches.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think sometimes the thing that's important about it is that when you sit with people who I'm on with, like for example Mario Missalamani or some of the other people that I'm on with regularly, you all understand each other's lives because you live it. You just live it in a different way with different people, and so you have similar issues, right? Like Pete Seat and I can laugh about similar issues we've had in the past working for different elected officials and the personalities involved and the people around them and just the experiences you have. I mean, unless you've done a statewide bus tour, trapped on a bus with your candidate and every elected official unless you've woken up in Lake County on Halloween morning on day 8 of your bus tour, you you've lived it, right? And so Robert Vane, who's a good friend of mine, we say a lot of times that we will tell you on certain issues, we'll have different approaches and different opinions, but we will tell you basically the same thing in terms of advice because we've been there and we've lived it. And so there are just best practices beside that.
It's after those bus tours you really think about whether or not this person's the right person for the job.
Yeah.
I remember being on a bus tour, and it was in 2004, and I was working for Mrs. Kernan, and like we had been on the bus for just days and days and days, and I just remember getting home after that bus tour, and I left my house. I had left my house in the dark, and I would come home at night, and I remember coming home one day after the bus tour, and I realized that my neighbors had painted their house, that it was like, it was light, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, what happened? So, you know.
That happened months ago.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of like and I think that's with my husband. He works in politics too, and it's just funny because it's like I'm never mad, you know, when he's like not left the house in August when he's working on 1 million mail pieces. So, although I did one year have to say to him, I was like, could you come to the baseball game so people think that No Taggart has a dad? That would be really nice.
Exactly.
Could you
They
just
don't
come
think
to
we'd
the
be
game?
divorced.
Right? Like I'm wearing a ring, but it would be really nice if you could just come. Please? That'd be great.
You're watching Merritt in the Morning. Our guest this week is Lara Beck. We are just talking politics and behind-the-scenes politics and crisis management. We are back at Cafe Audrey's at beautiful Fort Harrison. Stop in for breakfast and lunch. Jim, remember, what do we say?
Work hard and be nice.
There we go. Work hard and be nice. We want to thank our sponsors, the Honey Baked Ham Company. Locations at Greyhound Pass in Carmel, 96th and Michigan Road on the northwest side. Remember, they have ham. They also have turkey and lots of other things.
Chocolate cake.
Chocolate cake,
Honey
dessert,
mustard dressing.
sides. You can
getting
eat
hungry.
in or carry out. They are there for you. I was going to say 365 days out of the year, but I think
Don't do
more
that.
like 360-ish.
Yeah. They're open all the time.
I take a few days off, but yes, they are there. They open, I think, at 10 a.m. and they're there till 7. So you got ample opportunity, and they've got new signage. So come in and compliment them on their new sign. So you heard about them on Merritt in the Morning. They'll appreciate it. Also want to thank Stockyards Bank and Trust. Location 71st and Binford, downtown Indianapolis, Carmel, Plainfield, Greenwood, coming soon to Center Grove,
This is always a test, by the way.
Whitestown.
I'm
It
really
is-
impressed. Like I
well,
can't
I've said
remember
this-
anything.
Okay, so we're on episode 45, and I probably delivered the same commercial now. So if I do it 3 times an episode, this is probably about the 90th time I've said it. So what throws me is when they move.
Yeah.
They change locations or add one,
Yeah.
and then it's
And they've been with us for 45. They were
That's
with us in
awesome.
the beginning.
They have.
Paul Moan is just a
We're probably
terrific-
about due to bring Paula Moan back on and
Yeah.
see how she's doing. Talk
Yeah.
banking.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
So, all right. So back to our guest. Laura, Jim and I were talking before you got here today.
Because I was running late. 'Cause
No,
I'm always late when
that's
I'm with
fine.
you
We
guys.
had breakfast here yesterday.
I'm always
Yes.
late.
The eggs and the bacon
Oh,
and the
it's
hash
delicious.
browns.
Oh,
They
God.
step on the hash browns. It's just they're crunchy.
gosh, yes.
It's really good.
I love a good hash brown.
So, Nikki Kelly in the Indiana Capital Chronicle today had an editorial about the Sagamore of the Wabash.
Oh, I saw that and I haven't had a chance to read it, and I'm
So-
looking forward to it.
So basically, was talking about how Governor Holcomb in his waning days handed out numerous Sagamores of the Wabash, and then she listed and said that
It was all over Facebook.
yes, all over Facebook. I think that Evan Bayh handed out like 3,500. Bob Orr handed out about 3,500. I know Mitch Daniels reined that in, and he only gave out like a couple a
He
year.
was just trying to be exclusive.
Yeah, well, he had
was just trying to make it.
Skeheim.
Sachem.
Sachem. Whatever.
Sachem?
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 Satcham.
Sachem.
Okay, thanks, Jim. So in any case, then I know that there's some people saying when you hand out a whole bunch of Sagamores, that dilutes the value of the Sagamore. My opinion is, you know what? Find somebody doing something good. It doesn't matter how many people there are. Celebrate them for being good Hoosiers.
Can I give you a little history of this whole thing?
Yes, please.
Okay. My dad had hanging on his office wall since Ed Whitcomb was governor,
That's awesome.
a sachem.
Oh, wow.
They had an award back then, a sachem and a Sagamore of the Wabash. He still has them. And Ed Whitcomb was governor, 1968?
Yeah.
And one term, because back then, Indiana,
One-term rule, right?
one-term rule.
Yeah.
And he wanted to be a U.S. Senator, but Dick Lugar wanted it more. Yeah. And so this award has had kind of a interesting history. And when Whitcomb was governor and Bone was governor, or O'Bannon,
and
Kernan, and then Mitch Daniels, the rule was that former legislators and legislators are not qualified. They are.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, they are not. They were not included. They were not allowed to have sagamores. And the sachem from the 60s with my dad went away. But since then, the legislature has started something called the Corden Award, the Heart of Corden.
Yeah.
I forget the name.
Yeah, I think that was Eric Holcomb created that, right?
Well, yes, yes, I think so. The legislature gives it out themselves.
Okay.
And so Governor Pence is the person, the administration that broke it loose. And when in his last couple days, he had a lot of us into the governor's office, and he gave us all sagamores. And I have a Kentucky Colonel as well.
Oh, do you? That's so cool.
And I've moved so many times since.
Could open a chicken franchise.
I've always thought the Kentucky Colonel was a really cool award, too.
It is.
It is.
That
It
was
is
a very
nice
cool
award. But I don't even know where my sagamore is because.
So you have devalued your own sagamore.
Yeah.
So-
My friend Rob Kendall says, "Why don't you have that hanging in a place of honor in your home?" I said, "Well, I'm a history buff, and I really believe the history should be intact. That if somebody's drowning in a lake and you save them, they ought to get a sagamore. I mean, it's saving a life, and so I don't put a whole lot of value in my sagamore."
Who did you get your sagamore from, though?
Pence.
Pence.
Yeah, he broke loose.
Okay,
with
so
the rule.
you got yours from Pence. Okay. Do you have a sagamore?
I do not.
We
I
gotta
do
work
not.
on that.
I doubt I will ever get one. I'm
I don't
wrong
know.
party. Do you
I
have
don't
one?
know. I do, actually.
I bet you Rob Kendall gets one now.
Oh, I bet he does. I bet he does.
So what was
Hi,
Nikki's
Rob.
take on it?
So Nikki's take was, it's good to celebrate Hoosiers, and the more the merrier.
Well, I would say this from my perspective is having worked on a staff. When you work on a staff for an elected official or a governor, you're there because you want to be there and because you like working for them, right? Like when I worked for Mayor Peterson, everyone would get a proclamation when they left. I don't think I got a proclamation after. I should probably tell you how but he wrote a nice note,
I
on
worked
my
on the
picture.
proclamations for Hudnut.
Yeah, I did
and
too.
And I did this.
The auto pen?
I did the auto pen.
Yeah, we were auto pen pros. Our auto pen work was good. But I was gonna say, when you work for them and you work on that, you are bought into and you support and you are moving that forward. And so to get a sagamore from someone who you worked for and you deeply respect, that really means something to you. So like what Joe Kernan presented everyone with sagamores when we left office in 2004, 2004, and that was a really meaningful day. He gave them all to people, and so I have pictures of him and Maggie, and then we took a staff photo. I mean, it's really meaningful. Now, I will say, I never got mine framed, and I actually was
You have
looking at it.
devalued your sagamore.
No, but
My
you know
gosh,
what?
you
I have
people
to say-
embarrass me.
No, do you know what it was? It was really hard because it was really hard to lose in 04. It was incredibly hard to lose in 04. So it was almost like it was tough. And then after Joe passed away, it was really hard for me to pull that out because I also worked on his portrait committee. And so we helped. I helped with the portrait selection. And so again, I have a mini portrait. I have a whole thing. It's just really hard. And so I was actually looking at that. I was cleaning out my closet and I was looking at it and I thought, I need to frame this because I've never been somebody who's been like, oh, look at this. It's always been more about the team for me. But seeing that, I thought, God, it kind of catch my throat a little bit. But my husband worked for the Democratic Party when Governor O'Bannon was in office. And if anyone, you knew Governor O'Bannon and what a great person he was. He's really proud to have that sagamore that he helped get Frank O'Bannon elected with a whole group of people. And so I think that, but So from that perspective, I think it's important. I think, I don't necessarily know when Pence did it and he broke it open. I mean, yes, if you go into a lake and you save somebody, you should definitely get a Sagamore. But you put legislation in that has also saved lives, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think you don't devalue. I mean, you've done a lot of really good things that have had a huge impact. And there are some legislators who don't. But for those who do, it's important.
Yeah.
And
It's interesting how history, you look at it. I got a call from somebody with the Kernan group, the Kernan alumni, and they wanted to get a bust for Joe Kernan.
Yeah,
but they had no idea how to do it. And so I gave them the plan on how we did Frank O'Bannon's. And regardless of Republican or Democrat, Joe Kernan was a hero, and he was also elected governor.
Right? Yeah, he was a war hero.
He was not elected governor. He ascended to the governor's office.
He was elected lieutenant governor.
Yeah, elected lieutenant governor and mayor, and just he was an outstanding public servant, hero, war hero, but I really I have no fingerprints on that bust, but I know I added a little bit to it, and I went to the ceremony. And did you get a little bust?
I don't have a little bust, but I did have to laugh. I was looking at the list of donors, and my husband's listed as a donor, and I'm not. And I said, "Wait a minute, wait a minute, like, did you donate for the two of us?" And he's like, "I don't know, my name's on the list." But what was really funny about that was Kevin Murray is the person who put that whole thing together, and Kevin is just a great American. He's a great American.
Kevin's the one that called me.
He's a great American. He put that entire thing together. He worked tirelessly to get it done. But Kevin won't see this, so I can tell the story. So Joe had kind of a crooked smile, and he had what he called the twinkle. And so Kevin called me one point, and he's like, "Hey, could you come out and look at the bust? Because we're just not sure of the face. Could you come look at it?" And so a couple of us went out and actually looked at the face. And I just laugh all the time because I just get myself on these errands for Kevin Murray. Like, it still is like I'm an intern. Like, "Sure, Kevin, yeah, what do you need?" So here I am driving out, meeting with the artist, looking at the thing. And we took pictures.
Did he look like this?
Some other people had to wait in, and we kind of talked about the photos. So yeah, it was.
Well,
but
Kevin
it was really
called me.
funny. But Kevin's
called me and
the best.
said
Yeah.
the bust was finished.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, did you get the eyebrows?"
Yeah, the eyebrows.
God.
That was
The
part
bushy-
of it.
How do you do that in bronze?
Yeah. And I said,
This artist is incredibly talented. I need to look. Indy Forge is his name. He's a firefighter. He does them all over.
When Frank O'Bannon's clay bust was finished by the artisan in Yorktown, Indiana, and he invited me up to look at it, see how I felt. I said, "Well, you have to have Mrs. O'Bannon," and she brought Jennifer O'Bannon with her.
Oh.
And I looked at it. I said, that's really not Frank's nose. And Jennifer, and Judy said, "You're right." I said, "Well, let me take it." Jennifer O'Bannon has Frank's nose.
When he has a nose.
He
had a nose.
He had a nose, and so I took a silhouette of Jennifer, a picture.
Okay.
And I gave it to the and this is a Polaroid, and I mailed it back up to him, and this is a long time ago, and he reconditioned the nose, looking at her nose, and the only you have regrets. I'm glad they put a really nice tie on Joe Kernan, but they did not put a suit coat on the on the bust for Frank O'Bannon.
Huh, that's interesting. It is a beautiful bust.
He slept in a suit, and that was my only disappointment with that bust.
I think it's interesting. I think it's as you're listening to you talk about Mrs. O'Bannon. I mean, one of the things I think that we have gotten away from in Indiana, and that I think and I'm not exactly sure why, and maybe it's because it's more partisan and super majorities, but Mrs. O'Bannon was one of these people who just could find the good in every Hoosier community. And it wasn't, oh, you're a different political background, or oh, I'm locked into whatever, special interest group that is supporting my husband, or whatever. But I mean, she just found the good. And what I think is so interesting about her is she is such just a powerhouse of a person, and she's kind, and she's just like singularly focused on getting the job done. But she also was this antiquer, and so like they would go on, like she would just stop and pick up stuff. And so one time I was in the residence, and there was like, I love kind of like antique, I love that stuff myself, and there was like a box of ball jars, and they were really cool. And I said, whose are these? And so he's like, oh, Mrs. O'Bannon picked those up, and they've been sitting in the garage, you can take them if you want. And I thought, Mrs. O'Bannon, I have your ball jars, they're at my house. But they were like the coolest thing, and I'm sure she just probably walked in and was like, oh, we could use this for the barn, or we could use this for here.
I think the O'Bannons probably had a lot to do with Fort Bend being saved,
absolutely.
because
yes,
well,
they
yeah.
lived here.
So when they were redoing the governor's
they
mansion,
lived at the Harrison House.
Yeah. So
And he became a bird watcher then.
yeah.
Yes, and would golf, go over and golf.
Judy O'Bannon and I started the Statehood Day celebration. And so you talk about bipartisan, and that was.
Sometime you should have John Zodi on, because he can tell the story about when I think it was the second inauguration, when they invited every fourth grader in the state of Indiana to the inauguration.
I don't remember that.
They did, and they had to have it inside because it was so cold, and it was a last-minute conversation. And so John and a bunch of like young staffers all had to be there, and he was like, he had a headache for days. He said, I'm exhausted. I've been corralling fourth graders at the convention center all day long. He earned that Sagamore. He earned
How many
that
thousands
Sagamore.
of fourth graders are
There
there?
were so many fourth
For
graders,
Statehood
and
Day,
it was
we'd
so
have
cold.
600 people in December 11th. And kids at the State Museum, at the Art Museum, and all different places.
These are things people don't ever think about when you're coming up with these ideas.
Yeah. But anyway,
No, it's awesome.
all about
It's so cool.
bipartisan.
No,
Okay,
it is.
so back to the Sagamore. I want to challenge both of you. Make your Sagamore your cover photo on Facebook.
Oh, gosh.
Come on. That's
If
better
I
than
could
I'm
find
not
it.
really
Or
on
your-
Facebook.
Or your Kentucky Colonel.
Yeah.
I can put it on Instagram. I'm really not on Facebook that much
Okay,
anymore.
wherever you want to
I
put
will.
it, just
I will. I will
celebrate
put it
it.
on. I will.
It's an honor. You guys deserved it.
I think
Yeah.
that's
We'll work
right.
on you. We'll work on
Thanks.
you. Maybe in.
I think I might have been in line to get it.
Posthumously.
So, I used to be the president of the press club. Whenever
Okay,
they
sure.
left, they would get a Sagamore, and I
Did you miss a meeting?
No, I was president of the press
They
club when it
changed the
closed
rules.
down.
You were a Micah Beckwith thing. They just wrote you in at
Yeah,
the
exactly.
end.
I got
No
penciled
Sagamore
in.
for you.
Yeah. So, the press club closed down when I was president, and
Man,
nothing
no
ever happened.
Sagamore.
That's all right. I'm not sure the president of the press club is deserving, but I know
I mean, in
it
this
happened.
day and age, they really are.
exactly,
Right? In
yes.
this day and age, they probably need to revive the
So
press club.
someday, I'm young. I'm only 56.
Oh yeah, you've got plenty.
I got
of good
gobs
years.
of time
You've
to
got
earn
gobs
one of
of
those
time
things.
to get one of them. But I did see it today, and I always really enjoy Nikki's takes on various
I do too.
various policy
Indiana
issues.
Capital Chronicle is a
It's
wonderful.
the best. It's so good. It's so good.
News outlet.
Interesting side note. I introduced Nikki and her husband at
Did
the
you?
press club.
Oh, how interesting.
So, they were there on a blind date, but they didn't know who each other
Oh,
was.
really?
And I was volunteering as the bartender at the press club that
I've
day.
always enjoyed working with
and,
her.
Nikki's now husband showed up early.
Okay.
So I talked to him and talked Nikki up because she was on the board with me. And then when she got there, I'm like, Nikki, this is your date.
So when Linda Pence ran for Attorney General, I did her comms on her campaign, and it was very funny because not everyone would show up to all the press conferences that Linda did, and Linda did a lot of press conferences. Linda also believes in binders, so Linda would make policy binders. I mean, Linda had the binder system of life. I mean, Linda is. If you haven't spent
Very
time with
organized.
Linda, it is time well spent. So anyway, she came in one day and she had this policy proposal she was going to do. She had a binder. We got to where we were doing the press conference, and Nikki came. So Linda said, Nikki, I'm just going to go through my press conference with you. And they sat down on the wall by the State House, and Linda said, okay, Nikki. And then she had her book and her binder. And I mean, Nikki just laughed. The two of them laughed the entire time all the way through it. But
I
mean,
could see Nikki absolutely doing that.
But Nikki is so thorough and so smart. And
Yes.
But what I love about her is she's also She's no drama, no nonsense. She cuts right to it, and there's something that's so Gen X about her that I just love.
She ought to be a guest.
She should be a
she should be a
guest.
guest.
She would be a great
Won't
guest.
be till
for you.
session's over.
House.
Yeah,
But
she'd
yeah,
be a great
she would
guest
love
for
it.
you.
And I know Aaron, her husband, is a big fan of ours. So
Oh, is he?
yes, he is.
We got
So,
a
Right.
couple of those. Yeah.
Well,
so actually, Aaron would be a good one to have on beforehand.
I know exactly. That would be a
Right
good
in the
one.
pump.
No, he's great.
So,
It's just
all right,
great.
we could do this for like another hour. However, we try to keep this a half hour
Oh, do you? Okay.
show. So anyhow, so thank you for watching. This has been episode number 45 of Merritt in the Morning. He is former State Senator Jim Merritt. I'm Brad Kloffenstein, president of the Greater Lawrence Chamber. Our guest has been Lara Beck.
Okay. Thanks.
So thank you very much for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
This has been great.
Yes, thank you to Cafe Audrey's for
good coffee.
allowing us to do the show from here. They're always great hosts, and they've got great food, so stop in for breakfast or lunch whenever you find yourself on the northeast side of town. Also want to thank the Honey Baked Ham Company, locations at 96 in Michigan and Greyhound Pass in Carmel, right in front of Menards. Go to the Menards parking lot, look across the parking lot, you see Honey Baked Ham. They are open 10 a.m. every day, open till 7. Have lunch in there or dinner in there. Take it home. They've got everything you need. And remember, ham is not just for the holidays.
Yeah, exactly.
And also want to thank Stockyards Bank and Trust, locations 71st and Binford, Carmel, downtown Indianapolis, Plainfield, Greenwood, coming soon to Center Grove, Stones Crossing, coming soon to, I want to say Whiteland, but not Whiteland. It's
Well, Zionsville.
Zionsville. Yeah,
Stones Crossing. No.
So, yeah, Stones Crossing's coming. So in any case, they're taking
I
over the world.
jinxed you.
So yes, don't resist it. Just put your money in that bank and
Whitestown. They're a growing concern.
yes, Whitestown. So thank you all for watching. We'll be back in a couple weeks and do this all over again. We appreciate everybody for being a part of this.